Today we're going to be meal prepping buffalo chicken and garlic parmesan potato wedges. This is one of the first recipes I ever developed, a true TMPM original. In this meal we've got chicken breast coated in buffalo sauce, roasted broccoli, and then roasted potato wedges flavored with garlic and Parmesan cheese. I'm going to be making 10 meals today, so all the values will reflect that amount. You're going to start with 2 pounds or 908 grams of frozen broccoli. One thing that I like to do when I cook frozen broccoli is to preheat the pan in the oven while the oven is preheating. That way you place the frozen broccoli onto a hot pan, and I find that it helps slightly with browning. The broccoli is going to be roasted in a 425-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes, flipping it halfway through. While the broccoli is in the oven, you can wash and cut 10 small or 1,500 grams of russet potatoes. With smaller sized potatoes, I try to get 8 wedges from each one. If you have larger potatoes, you might have to make a few more cuts. In this recipe, I'm going to be cooking each component in the oven just because it's easier for me, especially when I'm making large batches like this one. 10 meals at one time is a lot to make. Having to cook the chicken in batches in a frying pan or the potatoes in batches in the air fryer is going to take a few trips, and it's easier just to throw everything on a large sheet pan and put it in the oven, so that's why I'm doing it this way. You could absolutely speed things up by steaming the broccoli, or if you have a grill, throwing all the chicken on a grill, and that will save some space in your oven and prevent any kind of traffic jams from going on. I just want you to know that you don't have to bake everything like I'm doing it. The only reason I do it this way is because I'm lazy. So if you wanted to choose a different method, that is completely okay. Once you've got all of your potatoes cut, transfer them over into a large bowl and add 2 tablespoons or 30 grams of oil. Then we're going to add our seasonings, 2 tablespoons or 16 grams of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons or 4 grams of paprika, 2 teaspoons or 4 grams of pepper, 2 teaspoons or 4 grams of cayenne pepper, and then 2 teaspoons or 6 grams of salt. For the Parmesan cheese, you'll need 6 tablespoons or 34 grams of grated Parmesan. The way I do this is I take regular shredded Parmesan cheese out of the bag and I put it in my blender until it is processed down into smaller pieces. Give everything in that bowl a good toss to make sure the seasonings and cheese are evenly coated throughout those potatoes. At some point during this time, your broccoli is going to be finished. Just pull it out of the oven and set it off to the side. To save on dishes, I like to reuse that sheet pan that I used for the broccoli again for the potatoes. So give it a quick spray to make sure we don't have any stickage, pour the potatoes onto the sheet pan, and then spread them out evenly throughout. I take the time to line up the potatoes so that they are facing in the same direction and have one of their sides in full contact with the pan. This will help with browning and it will help make flipping easier when it comes time. You can move these potatoes into the oven and roast them at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes, flipping halfway through. You can also use the air fryer to cook these potatoes, and it's actually my preferred way. You'll need to cook them in batches, but just add the potatoes to the basket and air fry at 400 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes, flipping halfway. While the potatoes are in the oven, cut up 5 pounds or 2.27 kilos of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'm looking for bite-sized pieces here, so I cut down the chicken breast lengthwise a couple of times, flip it over to the other direction, and cut across each piece. If you plan to pan fry this chicken instead of bake it, I would make all of the cuts the same way. However, if you plan on grilling the chicken, I would recommend keeping bigger pieces. Either butterfly the chicken to make it thinner or pound it to even thickness throughout before you put it on the grill to make sure that it cooks more evenly. Whichever method you choose to cook it though, before you do anything, make sure you season it lightly with salt and pepper. It's likely around this time that your potatoes have spent the first half of their cooking process in the oven or the air fryer, and they need to be tended to. Pull them out of the oven and flip them over to the other side to get some browning on the other face. This is where lining all the potatoes up in an orderly fashion will benefit you. You can then take a spatula and turn multiple over at a time, or if you're like me, you can try that out for a bit and then say fuck it and just start using your hands. Return them back to the oven to finish cooking. They'll probably need an additional 8 to 12 minutes depending on how hot your oven is and how many you have on that pan. Once they've reached your preferred level of brownness, they are done and can be reserved off to the side with your broccoli. For baking the chicken, I'm going to take a couple of sheet pans and spray them lightly with oil to make sure we don't have any stickage, and then divide those chicken pieces evenly between my 2 sheet pans. In terms of flavor, baking is probably the least preferred way to go about cooking this chicken. Pan frying or grilling will absolutely give you a better product, but pan frying takes longer and I don't have a grill. It's very important not to overcrowd these pans. The more space you have between those pieces of chicken, the better. Roast at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes and flip halfway. While that's cooking, you can make your sauce. Mix together 2 tablespoons or 28 grams of melted butter and 4 to 6 tablespoons or 60 to 90 grams of buffalo sauce. Stir that together until it is incorporated. When you pull your chicken out of the oven to flip it, you may notice that you have a lot of water in your pan. If you want to get optimal browning, you need to drain this away from the pan. That's going to cause your chicken to steam and not brown. Overcrowding your pan is going to make this worse. You can see that I had a lot of water. I put way too much chicken on each of these pans. Chicken breast is tricky to meal prep because if you overcook it, it's going to get dry and rubbery, especially when you reheat it in the microwave, and it might have an off flavor after you do this. So you really want to make sure that you do not overcook this in the oven the first time that you are making it. Try to keep a close eye on that chicken, and if you see that it's done early, pull it out and don't keep cooking it. You don't want this to be overcooked. Once all the chicken has finished cooking, pour it into a large bowl and add your buffalo sauce mixture. Stir it all around. If you need to add more buffalo sauce, do so. The last step is to plate everything up. I like to lay out each of my containers and divide each component evenly one at a time. I start by adding a couple of spoonfuls of the chicken to each dish and matching that amount into the remaining containers. Then I do the same with the broccoli, eyeballing it and adjusting as I go. And lastly, I divide up all the potatoes and garnish with a little bit of parsley to make things look nice. Each one of these meals has about 480 calories and 51 grams of protein. Once the meals have cooled, you can put the lid on them and throw them in the fridge for storage. I always tell people that 3 to 5 days is the magic number for keeping meals in your fridge. I wouldn't recommend keeping anything past the 5-day mark unless you decide to freeze the meals. These 10 meals that you see here are not just for myself. I'll be splitting these with my roommates, and with each of us eating one per day, they will last us just over 3 days, which is the perfect amount for me. You can find the full written recipe in the description of this video below, or you can head over to my website, mealprepmanual.com, and find even more meal prep recipes there. See you next week.